This is my first story. I thought I'd share my experience. My fiancé and I get along with all our neighbors. We look out for each other's homes, packages and so on, so forth. Well, recently, our neighbor, Chris, he hasn't been doing too well. At one point he had a full house, wife, kids, dogs, the American dream, but then he started hanging out with the wrong people. He started doing hard drugs. All hours of the night we started hearing arguments from his house with his family from our home. That's how loud they'd scream. The ambulance would get called often because of his anxiety attacks. Before you knew it, his whole family just left, just like that. After they left, things just got worse for him. He got locked up twice, once in the city we live in and once in Dallas, I don't know for what. While he was locked up in Dallas, one of the people that got him into these hard drugs, broke in his house and cleaned him out. We phoned his family and let them know what had been going on, and then occasionally they'd go over to check on the house. They changed the locks and cleaned the house up and maintained it until Chris returned home. He was not happy about what had been going on. We explained to him what happened and we let him know exactly who it was that robbed him. Let me just clear things up by saying all this happened when we were at work. It wasn't later until we found out by checking the cameras. Well, Chris, once again, drove his family away to where they stopped completely visiting. About 3 weeks ago, is when it started. I drove home late from work. I noticed all his lights were off. He was screaming from the top of his lungs, as if arguing with someone. I didn't want to get involved and I went inside my home. I could hear him. For the rest of the evening, he yelled and argued. I could hear him breaking things in the house. I could hear him slamming things. My nights have been restless because he can go all the way from 6 p.m. to 5 a.m. He's already been through so much. I don't want to call the cops on him for noise complaints. Then 2 weeks ago, like clockwork, he started screaming around 6 p.m. I can tell he's destroying the house. I hear smashing like he's breaking walls down, still arguing with himself. Things being thrown. I started keeping my gun close by, just in case. On Wednesday, January 17, 2024, I decided to go home for lunch. I saw Chris sitting outside his home, listening to Linkin Park song Crawling. I knew I had to say something because he was definitely spaced out, like he's thinking some pretty dark thoughts. So I did. My fiancé doesn't want to get involved and asked me to just stay out of it, but when I saw him I couldn't. I walked up to the fence and said, "Hi Chris." He looked at me and in a low voice responded, "Hi." I asked him, "Chris, are you okay?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm fine." I know he was putting on a brave face. We haven't talked in a while, so I proceeded, "Chris, look, you know that if there is something wrong or if you need help with anything you can ask us, right? It's okay to ask and we can help you as much as we can. Are you hungry?" He looked at me embarrassed and I felt so bad, but I tried to make it seem like it's not a big deal, like it's okay, so that he wouldn't feel that way. He replied, "Thank you, but I'm okay." He got up from the chair on his front porch and went inside his house. So, I went into my home and had my lunch. That night, my fiancé had to drive to McAllen, Texas. Same night his tia passed away. because he had a meeting Thursday morning and it's about a 4-hour drive from San Antonio, where we are from. So he left and made me promise to stay inside and no matter what I hear next door, stay inside with our 2 dogs, German Shepherds. I promised him I would and he took off. By that time Chris was at it again, shouting, yelling, breaking things, smashing things. It was so bad that his voice was already going away, so he sounded a little different but still loud and in pain. I stayed up until about midnight. I was in the back of the house in our den watching television. I decided it was time for bed because well, I had work in the morning. So, I turned everything off and I go to the room. There is when I hear Chris yelling and shining his flashlight through our bedroom window screaming, "You always keep your lights on all night, it's already 3 a.m. and you still have your damn lights on." First it was midnight, and secondly his voice, it was weak from the constant screaming. I couldn't help but get pissed off that he was doing that, and despite what I promised, I made my way out of the bedroom, through the den, and I opened our back door and stepped outside and I raised my voice at him saying, "Chris, what the hell are you doing?" He quickly turned out his flashlight and I noticed 2 things. One was that he had no power in his home. For the last 3 weeks he had no power, I just realized. He spent his night in complete darkness, and in the cold. The second thing I noticed, he was shaking way more than just a cold shake, he was definitely on something and it was affecting him. I stepped outside and said. He replied, "I'm not doing anything," and he started walking back inside his home and I shouted, "Chris, are you okay? Can I call someone?" And he yelled back, "I'm fine, no, don't call anyone." Then he just disappeared into his home. I went back inside my home and called my fiancé. I told him what happened and what I saw and I told him we have to do something. He has to call the neighbor's son-in-law and let them know what's going on. He was upset because again, he didn't want to get involved, but he did it for me. He called the son-in-law and the next day when I got home from work, I saw the whole family was at Chris's house. We said hello but didn't exchange much words. Once again, they left and that was that. Chris is still in his home, no power, no family. Every night he yells, shouts, he's breaking things, throwing things. I saw him yesterday arguing with himself in the front yard, no one was there. My fiancé mother told me, when she had stopped by our home, that he told her he sees Mrs. Herrera in the house. Mrs. Herrera was the previous owner that lived there for 50+ years until she and her husband passed away. Then Chris bought the house. My fiancé and I started taking Chris food. We offered to run an extension cord from our home to his, but he won't accept that. I don't know what's going on, I blame it on the drugs. Hopefully tonight will be different and we can get some sleep. I wouldn't count on it though. I'm open to suggestions. None of the other neighbors have gotten involved, then again, we are the ones close to his house, he is on the corner. Thank you for reading. This is a true story and still currently ongoing. We just don't know what to do but mind our own business and just help where we can help.